केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे, केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How much do you think your life is worth to an airline? Tonight, I ask this because the man entrusted with flying an Air India aircraft carrying 145 people has reportedly tested positive for, lo and behold, sit back, hold your heart. Yes, tested positive for consumption of marijuana. Let me repeat that once again. The pilot in command of Air India flight AI2379, the Phuket to Delhi flight that suddenly lost approximately 300 feet of altitude on the 4th of August, has tested positive for drugs in the second confirmatory laboratory test conducted after the initial post-flight screening. Now, think about what this means for you and me, the passenger. You plan a holiday with your family, you buy your Air India tickets, you pay thousands, perhaps lakhs of rupees. Your child may be sitting next to you in the flight. Your parents may be traveling with you. Someone you love may be waiting for you at home. And when that aircraft takes off, you hand over something infinitely more precious than the money you have paid for the ticket. You hand over your life for the safe custody of the airline and the pilot. And your trust, you certainly don't walk into the cockpit and ask the captain, "Sir, are you fit to fly me and my family home today? Sir, are you sober? Sir, I hope you aren't high, not on alcohol, and certainly not on marijuana." You don't ask these questions because you shouldn't have to. That is the pilot and that is the airline's responsibility. And that is why what has emerged tonight should concern every single person who has ever boarded an aircraft. From the passengers who walked out of that flight injured and traumatized, it was no less than a near-death experience. Listen in to these passengers themselves.
People behind me was very injured, very bad. One other guy was all blood in their eye, in their face, so it was horrible. I thought to die actually.
15-20 पैसेंजर्स को चोट आई है, किसी का सर फटा है, किसी के बेबी को चोट आई है, मेरी लोअर बैक गई है, मेरा भाई है उसका शोल्डर गया, उसकी बैक गई, उसके कान का पर्दा तक फट चुका।
जिस तरीके से वो बात कर रहे थे एक्सीडेंट के बाद या टर्बुलेंस के बाद, तो वो पूरा लग रहा था कि वो नशे में हैं।
And now there is another disturbing piece of this puzzle. A video from inside Air India 2379 from that very day, which is going viral on social media. Listen carefully to what the pilot is telling the passengers after the terrifying 300-foot drop. He urges passengers not to post out the incident on social media. Think about it, viewers. Why were passengers being asked not to photograph what had actually happened? Why worry about social media impact even before the aircraft had safely been landed? Was this crisis management or a preemptive attempt to cover up? So what next? Believe it or not, as per DGCA norms of 2020, the only consequence that this pilot faces is being sent for de-addiction or rehabilitation. There won't even be a suspension if it is a first-time offense. So the questions remain in what are the gaps? What does accountability look like when the system itself moves so slowly? For now, French agency BEA has joined the Air Accidents Investigation Bureau probe, which is going to be looking at this entire issue because the aircraft is manufactured by Airbus. The government too is treating this issue with utmost seriousness. Air India's outgoing CEO Campbell Wilson was summoned by the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Top officials of the ministry, DGCA and AAIB were present in the meeting, and according to sources, the government not only conveyed its displeasure but also pulled up Air India's top bosses. The focus now is on tightening dope test norms for pilots.
Definitive action needs to be taken on this. But in the meantime, if it is anything related to substance abuse or substance using, I would say that from the ministry, we are taking it very, very seriously. And if we find that there needs to be some tweaking in the existing regulations, we are ready to do that also.
Now, we must be absolutely clear about one thing. We are not saying marijuana alone caused that aircraft to drop 300 feet. That needs to be officially established because there are reports of serious technical problems as well, including hydraulic system failures and an autopilot disconnect. There are also reports that suggest that the co-pilot was at the controls when the aircraft lost altitude. Those facts too are under investigation. An investigation and a meeting which was joined by the Minister of Civil Aviation himself. But tonight, Air India must answer. What checks are in place to ensure that pilots in violation of drug policy are not commonplace? Air India can't just escape scrutiny, keep on awaiting probe and investigation results till the cows come home.
We were just giving an update on the status of the investigation. Excuse me, people. Excuse me, I need to reach my car.
Did the minister say anything regarding the incident?
That's not for me to say. I think that's up to him to give an update.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. Pilot tests positive for marijuana. Has Air India failed the safety test? That's the question and that's the debate on the other side.
You're watching the News Hour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Joining the debate tonight is J.S. Rawat, former Joint DG, DGCA. Also joining the debate is KV Rao, whistleblower against Air India and General Secretary of the All India Cabin Crew Association. Meenu Wadia, founder president, Federation of Pilots and former Air India pilot. Also joining tonight are Dilip Cherian, image guru, as well as a very, very frequent traveler and a well-known citizen, Bejon Mishra, consumer rights activist. But my first question goes to Monish Shamsi and Vinesh Khan, passengers on this AI 2379 flight from Phuket to Delhi. And to the passengers, my question, what happened that day? What did you experience? Many people are talking about the pilot not even walking straight. What did you see?
Yeah, see, that moment is so frightening. That moment is not erasable from our mind. Because the time when we were about to get onboarded from the gate, at that time I saw one of the pilots, and the dress he's wearing was not appropriate. I mean, I can see that the buttons were open. At that moment, it was looking that he's not a pilot. I even to inform my wife, does he looks like a pilot? Are we going to land safely? Even the plane was also a small aircraft. So anyways, the time when we started and during the cruise, when we have almost crossed 2 hours, at that moment, we were just sitting around after having a meal, and all of a sudden what we have observed, the plane shook upside down, and suddenly we fell down around 300 to 400 foot. And generally what happens before any air turbulence, we were informed that please fasten your seat belts. But at that moment, that moment passed, and we were told through an announcement, there is an emergency, please fasten your seat belts. And that's a moment that still we can't forget. We can't forget. At that moment, we were wearing the seat belts, so we were safe, we were not harmed. But we are still having that fear in our heart as well as in our mind. Anytime when we are traveling next, Are we going to reach our home safely? Are we going to meet our family? Are we going to meet our dear ones or not? And that was not the time. The crew was supportive. One of the co-pilot crossed the corridor, and they were just saying, "Please stay calm. We are going to reach in 1 hour, and please don't make videos. It is not beneficial for both of us. But for us, me and my wife, we were sitting together, and next to us there was a foreigner. He was also very, very, very scared. Very
I
scared.
can imagine.
And
I can imagine. But being told not to stay calm, but to stop taking videos. Dilip Cherian, how's that for instructions coming in to those who were traveling? 20 passengers, 4 crew members hurt, came out with injuries, and we're going to see a wait for endless investigations. We're going to see statements from the airline coming out and saying we are waiting for the results of the investigation. And meanwhile, information that the pilot tested positive for marijuana. How are you going to fly next time when you take a domestic airline?
As somebody who flies frequently, this is frightening because there's failure at 3 levels. First, on the airline itself. The airline tried to push out the narrative that there was turbulence which caused it. So there was clearly, in the very early hours, an attempt to try and cover up. The second lot of people who we need to pull up for this is the fact that the DGCA simply doesn't have the technical staff to keep pilots and airlines on the correct track and with authority. Unfortunately, rules are not enough. You need technical authority to be able to enforce a lot of things. The third people who I'm concerned about, and as a traveler I should be worried about, are pilots. The other day I was telling someone that according to the regulations, there are cockpit cameras you would be able to make out. But then I was told that unlike in trucks or in the taxis that you ride in, those cameras have to have special privacy norms. And apparently pilots don't want to be, seen. Their faces must be blacked out, etc. Now, all these three things, to me, Navika, as both an observer of what these things communicate to passengers and how companies conduct themselves, are very worrying features. You can't have this kind of situation for a country that is growing its airline business. We need to have more people carried safely, and Air India already has a rather blemished track record in recent times.
I completely understand. Next time you book an Air India ticket, it's a song and a prayer in your heart that you need to do it. Mr. J.S. Rawat, I want to ask you, who's supposed to check all this? Is the passenger supposed to go and do the breath analyzer test or a drug test for the pilots? The pilots are swinging, cannot walk straight. And when the aircraft drops 300 feet, their first worry is not safety of pilots or wanting to land somewhere. Their first worry is that passengers should not make videos. Is this how airline and flying safety is actually maintained?
Basically saying that, telling the passenger that you don't make the video and all these things, this is not part of any kind of the procedure, neither airline procedure nor the DGCA procedure. Now, it was, I think, it was on his occasion. If you see the manual of the airline, what the instructions they have got to the pilots, it doesn't say that you make this kind of announcement. They can make the announcement for the safety of the passengers, okay, fasten the seat belt and all those kind of things, but not this kind of this. The second thing is that you are talking who is responsible for checking the whether pilot is having under the influence of any drug or alcohol. There are laid down guidelines that pre-flight medical examination is done for the pilots before starting the flight. So that is for the, but I think there is nothing mandatory dope test for this presently because it has been evolved now and it is going to take the shape how that thing has to be taken place because there are so many drugs which has to be taken care for this thing for determining whether pilot has taken up those kind of drugs or not. So this is in the initial stage and it will evolve because I can give you the example when the DGCA has introduced the pre-flight medical examination. And initially, for first time, I think, I talk about 1990 and 91, that you see the condition of the pilot, you smell him, and that if you find positive, then you carry out take the blood sample, and then after that, you will determine whether he has taken the drugs or not. After that, this pre-breath analyzer instrument came, and there was so many evaluations are there. Then there was real this thing in the change in the regulation. First time, you just
regulations haven't changed since 2020. We are in 2026. Who is supposed to? I understand what manuals exist, what rules exist, but rules are being flouted. Every other day, we have a problem with Air India. I want to ask you, there is a, indication of some hydraulic failure. There is an indication of, the co-pilot being on the controls. There is indication of other technical issues. Technical issues, well, I don't know what are the checks for that. Pilot issues, what are the checks for that? And on top of that, Air India prices are the highest in any airline anywhere, flying into India or out of India. Why are passengers expected to pay that if the basic norm of security and safety does not exist? And I want to ask this question of Meenu Wadia. Meenu Wadia, who's supposed to take care of all of these? The passenger, or are there other authorities?
There are other authorities, of course. But not having all the evidence right in front of us, we are normally trying to confuse the issues. What has exactly gone wrong? How much the pilot was drunk, or was he actually intoxicated, or was he had marijuana, etc. Let me be very, very clear. Let me clarify on two separate issues. The issue of drugs is a totally separate issue, and the issue of the aircraft having dropped 300 feet is a totally separate issue. As far as the drugs are concerned, we pilots are not specialists in drug analysis. There are specialist doctors who are, if a person is actually not supposed to have a drug which is banned, of course he must be hung, totally hung. There's no second ways about it. But before you put the noose around his neck, do a proper investigation, what is permitted, what is not permitted, and if he is found to be guilty, by all means, hang him. I have no sympathy for people who break the rules. Secondly, as far as the aviation aircraft is concerned, first of all, there are various theories that come out. There was turbulence, there was hydraulic failure, the autopilot has tripped, etc., etc. What I understand from various sources is the pilot was standing in the cockpit and the co-pilot was at the controls. And there was a warning that the autopilot is tripped and a stall warning. First of all, an aircraft which is flying at about 300 knots cannot just suddenly come to 100 knots in a fraction of a second. It has to take time. So the stall warning issue also, how it has come, when it has come, is debatable. I'd like to know the facts first before I comment on that subject. And also if the autopilot trips, it's no big deal. You can just re-engage the autopilot in a fraction of a second. There's no two ways. But what I understand, because of the warning that came in, the co-pilot was at the wheel. He wanted to prevent the stall from happening, and that's why he pushed the stick forward. And that is all conjecture. There's no evidence to that effect. I would like to have the evidence. And that is probably why the aircraft lost 300 feet, and that is why most of the passengers were injured. And if passengers had all got their seatbelts on, maybe far less people would have been injured to start with. Again, now I'm very happy that the DGCA, Mr. Rawat, is on board today. I'd like to make a very categorical and an emphatic statement that I find, and I have enough evidence to show, that the DGCA has, over the years, has been an impediment to aviation safety and standards. The DGCA, first of all, I'm talking the Federation of Indian Pilots. Why did I start this Federation of Indian Pilots in the first place? At that point in time, in the whole office of the DGCA, there was not a single aviator, only bureaucrats. And coming from the Air Force, I was more sympathetic towards them. Let's help them out. Why is it that only bureaucrats are running the airline and no aviators at all? And some years later...
Settle this, as pilot associations, DGCA, government, whoever, Dilip Cherian, does this have to be settled on 145 passengers on air and then we come up with these kind of problems to be debated at 9 p.m. on the Newshour tonight? Or is this something that is, you know, waiting to happen? Investigation, we don't know the facts. We still don't know the facts of the Dreamliner crash in June last year. We still don't know that. So are we going to wait for another 24 to 36 months till those investigation reports come and more such incidents takes place? What's going on?
At the moment, Navika, we are talking about stalled aircraft and injured passengers. If things had gone further wrong, you can imagine what horrors we would be facing today, and the nation would be both shocked, grieved, and ashamed. You can't have an aviation sector which is running with such norms, and aviation companies, as it is, we have too few of them, aviation companies who just are not playing by the rules. As I said, the pilots are well unionized, and because we have this huge shortage of pilots, they are able to push their way on almost any investigation, and they get their way far too often. And combine that with the aviation companies, you're really talking about a whole bunch of monopolies. And you, as someone who's understood economics, understands what the implications of this kind of economy, where on both sides you have virtual monopolies, it's impossible to get any real progress.
Absolutely. And Bejon Mishra joining the show. Bejon Mishra, I want to ask you, I simply want to ask you, where does the passenger go? He pays high prices for those tickets. Air India, by far, has the highest prices compared to other airline offerings. And then we have a safety track record, a pilot track record. Is this because of shortage of pilots? Are there junior pilots, pilots who are on marijuana, pilots who just take off because they've crossed their flying hours? And, an airline just carries on with impunity, nobody coming in, no regulator, and everybody saying we'll take the strictest actions. But every now and then there are these problems that take place.
Navika, thanks for getting me into your show after a long time. Nice to see you all. As a passenger, I would always say that there is no kind of a compromise in terms of passenger safety. There has to be a lot of transparency. You see, unfortunately, the aviation sector is very opaque. It is not transparent at all in any factor, whether it's pricing, whether it's safety, whether it is my welfare in terms of getting the value for money, and there is no accountability. As a passenger, we don't have unions, unfortunately. The pilots have a union. We are not mobilized in that manner. Thanks to channels like you who raise this issue of the passengers, and their voices are sometimes being heard by the policymakers and the lawmakers. What is really required is a real strong accountability. There has to be a very strong, robust oversight in terms of the regulatory mechanism in our country. DGCA is most of the time found, napping. What we need to understand is that there cannot be any negotiation on passenger safety. And when these issues happen, immediate action should take place. The heads must roll, action must be taken so that the whole system becomes trustworthy. We suspect the system. We suspect the mechanism, the process. We don't have trust in the process. We don't know when we will fly, when we'll go over for.
Absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. We have no trust in the process. We have no trust in the checks and balances that are expected to be there. And KVJ Rao, I want to ask you, June 2023, engine issue forces a diversion of an Air India aircraft to somewhere in Russia. It was headed for the United States. It goes to Russia. We saw the Dreamliner crash last year. In May 2026, technical snags and a tail strike took place. In May 2026, again, a tail strike during a landing in Bengaluru. Air India pilot was offloaded after he failed a smell test just before takeoff in Canada. This was in January of 2026. Air India's own watchdog audit revealed 51 safety violations in July 2025. If these are the internal records of the airline and if these are the instances that we have seen, what are we waiting for? We've seen one horrendous, horrific crash last year. What more in terms of a shock therapy do we need to get our act together?
Thanks, Navika, for having me on the show. We all are talking about all these incidents, but the regulator has been sleeping. The regulator is a Rip Van Winkle. They wake up when there's an incident. And like I have flagged so many violations, like Captain Minu Wadi has also done that. He's paid a heavy price. I've paid a heavy price. It is very easy for somebody in the DG to say, oh, in your complaint, we didn't find merit. How will you find merit when you are on a cover-up? The DGCA is like the hear no evil, see no evil, do no evil kind of a thing. There are a lot of checks and balances in place, but they are violated, flouted, but DGCA will not take action. I can show you reports. You're talking of this. There are reports. The Australia flights when they were operated initially had a 25%, well, a 25 times high risk to operate. We operated. DGCA was sleeping. We had so many incidents. We have a DGCA surprise inspection which showed that officers who were not authorized to sign reports, audit reports, signed audit reports. So the DGCA has been sleeping. And I have brought this up a number of times, but then it's like pouring water on a duck's back. You will not see anything till stricter norms are put in place. And as Minu Wadia said, the DGCA does not have personnel of the capacity that is required to monitor aviation. They might be technical engineering people or whatever they are, but they have no hands-on experience of aviation.
My God, that's a huge red flag. Mr. Rawat, I'm going to come back for a response, but we've opened up our phone lines and we're asking the question to our viewers. Do you feel safe flying in India after an Air India pilot has tested positive for marijuana? Rajendra Raina calling us from Faridabad. Good evening, Mr. Raina. Do you feel safe flying in India?
Good evening, Navika. I think this is one too many. And we have had a crash last year, almost a year back. And now this one. I think this one is the worst because earlier problems, we might have called them technical glitch, or something that will come out of a particular investigation. But this one is clearing human error in which DGC has fallen down, in which Air India, I think, has taken a massive hit. To be honest, as a regular flyer, I won't be booking any Air India flights anytime soon.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Air India off consumers list, says Mr. Raina. Sriram joining me from Mumbai. Sriram, do you feel safe flying in India?
Yes, to some extent, but with these repeated issues coming up with Air India, obviously, I think twice before booking a flight on Air India. And with these serious lapses on Air India, I think Air India should start taking action. Mr. Chandrasekhar should get involved. He's been only coming on media and giving statements like what he did when the Ahmedabad crash happened. So something serious, serious action should happen in Air India, and they are actually damaging the reputation of a nationalized carrier.
Well, yes, reputations do get damaged when incidents like these happen. But what are the answers? Saroj Damania, I want to ask you, what are the answers for all of these incidents that are happening? After all, privatization of Air India was almost an answer to the prayers of many who felt that government should not be involved. Do you think Air India has left its, they have let their consumers, their flyers down?
Yeah, of course, from an overall point of view, we expected much improvement when privatization happened. But of course, with privatization, you have to remember that these same old staffs, same old aircrafts have come into the new organization. They have, of course, ordered new aircrafts which will take 5 years, 10 years to come in because of the global shortage which is going on.
What do you do about marijuana, consuming pilots?
And nobody is defending that. Of course, it is absolutely a no-no situation. You cannot have pilots doing
But
drugs.
who's supposed to check? My question is that tonight. Who's supposed to check? Should the passengers be checking this, or should the airline have somebody doing that job now?
Oh, see, there are safety checks which are done pre-flight. A BA test is done now. In this case, somebody in Thailand must have checked it at the Phuket airport. A BA test must have been done.
So are you saying from Thailand we should not take Air India?
No,
is that what passengers should do?
But there has to be checked. So the BA test was done over there. But in BA test, they do not check for drugs. So that is the problem. So
isn't that a gaping hole, Suman Siraman? If a breath analyzer test for alcohol can be done, is there a test on drug usage, psychotic substance usage that also needs to be done?
Yeah, Navika, just 2-3 points. I think as a medical professional, I think to immediately jump the gun based on this test and attribute actions which happened in the aircraft to the result of this test is a little premature. We know that, for instance, marijuana can persist in the body for quite some time and be be detected in the urine also. So to immediately say that the way the headlines are going on was the pilot high, I think that is a bit premature.
All right, I'm willing to give benefit of the doubt, but see this in the context of the announcement made by the pilot that don't take videos. Is that not a giveaway?
Second point that I want to make is, I think that, piling on to the DGCA or anyone else, just every time that there's an accident or there is a near accident, and then forgetting about everything and getting back to business as usual. Look, this is our national trait. This happens everywhere. Bridges collapse 3 months after they are built. Trains crash into each other because somebody forgot to pull a signal. Nobody is ever held accountable. Some junior most staff member is held accountable. So I don't see why or how we can expect as a nation, just an organization, just because, rich people also travel in aircraft, why the accountability is expected here. There is no accountability.
You're right. We have become a nation that doesn't hold anybody accountable for anything, and which is why these things continue to happen. Joining me on the phone line from Dubai is Ranjit. Mr. Ranjit, what do you think now? This is a completely new variable that we have, a pilot high on marijuana. Now, is that adding to the list of worries that passengers should have when they travel on planes?
Absolutely, Navika ji. This is extremely scary. I actually traveled 2 weeks back from Dubai to Singapore via Delhi in the same airline, Air India. And I'm again planning to travel next week. But this has now made me very scary that I'm looking at other options like Indigo. I think there should be a thorough check on this, and there should be a thorough sort of investigation, because this is something cannot happen at all. Okay. I absolutely agree with Dr. Sumant Raman that this takes time for somebody to find it in the urine or blood, etc., etc. But then there should be a thorough sort of an investigation. Otherwise, this becomes very, very scary for normal passengers like us.
Absolutely. Balachandra, thank you very much for joining me on the Newshour. Balachandra from Chennai, also on the show. Yes, Mr. Balachandra.
Navika?
Sir. I can hear you. Can you turn down the volume of your television?
Yeah. Good evening, Navika. At the outset, let me congratulate you on the honor conferred on you.
Thank you.
Air India is behaving like a Maharaja for their own management. And they are not bothered about others are fragile. I think it's time. Mr. Chandrasekharan, who is the CEO of the organization, He's raking up 150 crores. Is that the salary he's taking? He should have resigned by this time. What is he doing? 150 crores is disgusting salary he's getting it. And on top of it, he doesn't come back on that. DGCA, very sorry to say, they don't have experts on the panel. Yeah,
we do have experts on the panel. Please direct your question to Mr. Rawat. Mr. Rawat, question for DGCA. Do we have people with the required expertise in DGCA? It's a yes and no.
Yes, there are. It's a very simple question. Yes, there are. The people are talking about this. Yes, there are. They are selected. They are selected through the UPSC. And their biodata is analyzed, everything is done there. They're interviewed by the UPSC and they're selected.
Okay. There are aviation experts on the panel who disagree with you.
Who's that? Who say that DGC officers are not competent?
Mr. Wadia?
No, Navika, one thing is there. People are talking about the bureaucrats heading the DGCA.
Okay.
That is the issue which is coming up from every person, every panelist.
Yeah. So do you think that is a problem?
I don't say that is a problem. That the industry, the person from the industry are saying this is a problem, and this is the problem they are facing.
But what do you think? You've been there, so I want to ask you, how do you see that?
No, the question is that there are technical persons are doing their job. Whatever the technical persons are there are bureaucrats. They have to take care of other things also. Because you know the how functioning of the bureaucrat. How does he doesn't go work straight away as per the technical this thing. He works in a different manner.
But here we are talking about technical issues. For example, whether the machinery is working all right or not, whether the pilot is sane and sober or not. Who's supposed to check this? Bureaucrats or technical staff?
It is not a bureaucrat, not the technical staff. There are laid down guidelines that pre-flight medical examination has to be done in whatever manner is there. So everything is laid down. It has to be completed. This thing, it has to be done by the airline.
Okay, Mr. KVJ Rao, you're satisfied with the answer?
No, I am not. Like I told you, Navika, I can give you documents where DGCA has found wrongs happening in Air India, and they were silent about it. And unfortunately, courts take time to hear matters.
Courts, forget courts. The investigation bodies take so much time that we don't know. Prakash Seth joining me from Mumbai. Prakash Seth, do you feel safe when you fly in India?
Yes, madam, it is not 100% safe. Navika Kumar ji, thank you very much. In India, it is not safe at all to travel by air. For what reason? They are charging so high fare from the passengers. And why the DGCA is not taking action? Our all lives are being put into the ride when we travel by air, and they are charging.
Absolutely, the question we are raising, a genuine question. I hope somebody in the DGCA, somebody in the Ministry of Civil Aviation is hearing these questions from passengers, future and past. Mahesh Kumar calling in from Pune. Yes, Mahesh.
Navika, first of all, let me congratulate you for allowing customers to speak to these experts for first time. Having said that, I have got two simple questions. Number one, hello?
Yes, sir, go on.
Yeah, number one is we are living in a world of a duopoly in aviation. We are at the mercy of that. And over that, a watchdog called DGCA, who is a complicit in it. They simply don't take any action. What happened to Ahmedabad? 150 people died. No action on the Air India. And they're simply sitting in. And we should wait for the judicial system, which is the icing on a cake for the bureaucrats sitting in DGCA.
Well,
they will take their whole long of years.
Complicity of the DGCA, is that the question that is being raised here? Well, that is the most valid question that everybody will ask tonight. Is the regulator, is the watchdog doing enough to maintain standards of safety? Well, people are not really convinced. Wing Commander Chandrasekhar joining in from Noida. Are you also questioning the complicity of the DGCA, or do you think the safety norms are just fine? Wing Commander Chandrasekhar? Well, we seem to have lost that line. Well, we did a survey and we asked people, pilot test positive for marijuana. Air India failed safety test? Yes, say 88% of the people. No, say 6%. Don't have a view, 6%. 88% people believe, well, safety norms are compromised. How are we going to restore confidence? Is this one mistake too many? Are there enough checks and balances in the system? Is the watchdog complicit, or is it really a watchdog trying to protect consumer interests? At the moment, just being alive at the other end of the flight seems to be the challenge that consumers are facing. Can somebody wake up and smell the coffee before another disaster strikes us? That is the hope and a prayer that Indian citizens are asking for. Thank you very much to all my panelists joining me on debate number 1.